Hello and welcome to the Retro Hour podcast, episode number 104, your weekly dose of retro gaming and technology news with me, Dan Wood.
And me, Ravi Abbott.
Now, first of all, we want to say, obviously, welcome again if you are a regular listener, week in, week out to the Retro Hour podcast, or maybe one of our quite substantial number of new listeners recently. I did spot we were number 3 in the overall iTunes chart the other day.
Yeah, we got a nice little boost thanks to a little article in the Guardian or Weekend Observer.
Yeah, that was last Sunday. That was actually a nice surprise because, I actually read the radio column in The Guardian quite a bit. I do work in the radio industry during the day. And, this is very well respected. Miranda Sawyer's section in there. We actually got a mention in there alongside Radio 4.
And it's quite good, because she doesn't really play that many games, but she said she found the show really interesting, so hopefully you guys will as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are new to the show after checking out that article, welcome on board. Great to have you listening. And the way the show works is Ravi and I run through the stories that have been making the headlines in the world of retro gaming this week because, that's something that still blows people's minds, that there is fresh new news about retro gaming.
And there is a lot that's always coming out. We can't fit it in now every week.
And then in the second half of the show, we welcome on a very special guest. Now, this week, we've actually got someone who's going to be joining us on our massive YouTuber panel that's coming up next month at Play Expo in Blackpool. Because, we've hosted Play. This will be our third or fourth time now that we've hosted Play.
Yeah, and it's a huge event. You can't talk about the scale of this. I think it's 20 or 30,000. It's just massive.
It is a huge event. And there's one in Manchester that we do. We do the one in Blackpool as well. I think, the two events are very different, but Blackpool is always so much fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, on the seaside. It's always fun.
And this is its 7th year. And lots going on this year as well. Now, we're going to be hosting the talk stage again there. We have a DMA design panel.
Oh, gosh, that's going to be amazing anyway, because DMA Designs, think about the games that they did. They did Lemmings and then Grand Theft Auto.
Hired Guns, obviously one of my favourites. Well, Steve Hammond is going to be there joining us on stage. Maybe a few more surprises to be announced as well. The Oliver Twins are going to be there. Obviously, at the moment, they're working really hard on their new game that's going to be coming out on the Spectrum next.
Now, if you don't know what the Spectrum Next is, it's the next Spectrum, It's kind of like the development of the Spectrum has been continued.
And this is like one of the most hyped retro projects of the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Having a recreation of the Spectrum. And obviously the Oliver Twins, the guys behind the Dizzy games back in the day. You do not get much bigger than Dizzy if you're talking Spectrum games. Digitizer, Mr. Biffo's going to be there as well. If you used to use Digitizer on teletext back in the day.
Oh, yeah, that was massive.
It was also a bit risque as well, wasn't it? So he's got some great stories as well, Paul Rose. And this is actually a first, I think, in UK retro shows. We're going to be doing a YouTuber panel. Now, we're going to have essentially some of our favourite YouTubers from the UK that we've had on the show before.
I'm so excited to actually meet them in the flesh.
Yeah, it's nuts because, we communicate with them, we have them on the show, we talk to them. But actually, at these events, one of the good things is being able to meet up face to face. And obviously, Blackpool, it's essential to get like a 90 pence pint at the bar.
Yeah, and we always see these YouTuber panels in kind of massive American events and stuff, and they're never at the UK, so...
Well, Larry Bundy's going to be there, Guru Larry, Nostalgia Nerd, Kim Justice, and our special guest on this week's show, Daniel Ibbertson, Slopes Game Room. Now, he's got quite an interesting history, actually. First of all, he's a massive Sega fanboy.
Oh, yeah. And his videos are unbelievably researched. If you want to look at someone who researches video game history, amazingly, he's your man. Once his videos are done, it's complete. That's the complete history.
Yeah. He's telling us he takes sometimes 2 months to do, research his videos really in depth. And he was also a TV presenter as well, wasn't he, for a while? He's got a bit of history there. The UK version of Jackass, essentially. So going to be a really interesting one. Slopes Game Room, Daniel Ibbertson is going to be our special guest on the Retro Hour podcast in around 20 minutes from now. And you might be hearing all this thinking, I'd love to come to that event. It sounds loads of fun. We always look after our listeners, don't we?
Oh, yes.
We always get you in the best shows. So do you want to come along and be Ravi and I's special guests for Play Expo Blackpool? Now, we're giving away, we've got a few weekend passes to give away, so this will entitle you and a friend to come along on both days, on Saturday the 10th and Sunday the 11th of February. It's happening at, it's Norbeck Castle, isn't it, the venue?
Yeah.
The Nook Olympia Exhibition Centre in Blackpool. And, you just walk in this place, there's wall-to-wall arcades, retro gaming traders are there as well, all the games are free to play, pinball machines, and...
I'm kind of annoyed that we're going to be hosting, not running around and playing with the games.
Well, we're bringing, obviously, our mate mates Joe and Alex are coming, so they always look out for bargains for us, don't they, nice and early. So if you'd like to come along and win a pair of weekend passes to be there for free, you can be our special guests. We've got a little form that we're going to leave open for 2 weeks on the front page of the retrohour.com. All you've got to do is nip on there, leave your details. We're going to close this on Friday, the 26th of January at midnight. Pop your details in there, and then we'll pick out a few winners at random. We'll drop you an email back and hopefully sort you out with a couple of free passes to come along. Good thing about it is as well, actually, it's a good event to bring the family to as well, because it is, I mean, people have been saying it's out of season for Blackpool. The thing about that is, though, obviously it means less queues to get into things.
Everywhere's still open.
Yeah, I mean, all the attractions are open. And actually, if you do want to bring the family along, they're actually giving out 2-for-1 tickets for Merlin attractions at Play Expo. So this will save you a lot of money if you're bringing the kids along.
Yeah, Merlin attractions, that's like Blackpool Tower, isn't it?
Yeah, Madame Tussauds.
Sea Life Centre. And
Blackpool Eye, the dungeons as well.
Yeah.
So make a weekend of it as well. So they're giving those out at Play Expo. And if you'd like to enter that competition and book tickets as well, all of those links you can find on the front page of our website, theretrohour.com. Hopefully we'll see you there. Speaking of events, we've got a pretty busy couple of weeks, haven't we?
Oh, God.
Next weekend we're doing an event as well.
Yeah, I've got to practice my DJing. I'm supposed to DJ there, and I haven't used these decks for like a year. So.
Your mixer blew up the other day, didn't it?
Oh, yeah, my mixer's blown up. Dan's got his in the boot that I'm going to have to practice with this week. So, yeah, it's interesting. This is All Your Bass, which is happening like kind of multiple venues. They're going to do stuff at Theatre Royal, which was fantastic. I went to see Dear Esther live in Birmingham.
It is a proper theatre, isn't it? Proper old school theatre. Very old.
Big theatre, and they're going to have Dear Esther played with Jess Curry doing the music of it. And, you know, there's a massive programme as well. So there's loads going on. There's a ticketed programme and a public programme as well. So even if you can't afford the ticket, can't come along, there's still events coming on. And, you know, there's just going to be some absolutely fantastic people there. There's I can never say his name.
Go on, have a go.
Oh, gosh.
You're going to be on stage with him.
Masaya Matsuda. That's it.
I hope you're going to rehearse that before you actually introduce him on stage.
Yeah. I'll be sitting there for ages and then I'll say it wrong.
Rob Hubbard.
Yeah,
the Commodore
Rob Hubbard.
64 legend.
Kenny McAlpine as well. They've got a lot more. DJ Ravi Abbott.
Never heard of him. No. That puts me off going, if I'm honest.
Yeah, David Wise, who did Donkey Kong Country soundtrack. So really just come down to this event and have a good laugh. Yeah, we're going to be down there. It's happening all weekend, like you said, the Friday and the Saturday next week as well. So we'll put ticket information for that in our calendar at theretrohour.com. Now, before we get into this week's stories, we have to say a massive, massive thank you to the people who allow us to keep coming in and doing this show week in, week out. And that is people who make a little donation into the running of the Retro Hour podcast. And just for doing that, any amount, big or small, you'll earn your place in the Retro Hour Hall of Fame. Well, you may notice that the website's a bit faster at the moment, and that's thanks to you wonderful donators. Yeah, because we've moved away from domain.com, who we had a fair few problems with. We're on Bluehost now. Yeah, Bluehost, and it's fantastic. About 5 times faster now, so that should help as well. So all you got to do is nip onto the website, theretrohour.com. We have PayPal on there, pretty much every cryptocurrency we accept on there too. And this week we want to say a massive thank you to Chad Goulding, John Barrick, William Darren Fox, Johannes Tollijander, who all made donations into the running of the Retro Hour podcast, and you can do the same at theretrohour.com. Right, before Slope's Game Room, should we do a few stories? Oh yeah, we've got some great ones this week. Should we start with a bit of Nintendo news? Well, this is an official Nintendo, so... Isn't it though? I don't know. This is hard. Okay, so all these mini consoles are coming out at the moment, and there's lots of mini handhelds, and they're kind of remakes of the new consoles. Now, they've just announced the Game Boy Ultra. Now, this is because CES has been on this week in America, and this has been demoed there. And a lot of the mainstream tech sites who don't really go that big on retro, like Gizmodo, we're going to link in our show notes, they've been demoing this product. And kind of showing off and explaining a bit about what it is. So essentially, this looks like a bit of is it a reboot of the Game Boy Advance then, or the Pocket or Color? No, this seems to be a brand new kind of Game Boy that has a LCD screen, USB-C ports for charging. So that's really modern, isn't it? USB-C. Yeah. 6-hour battery life, separate outputs for the left and right audio, and it also might support Game Boy Color or Pocket Game Boy carts as well. So the original carts do play on this system, and looking at it, I mean, it does look like a Game Boy Color, doesn't it? The shell of it. Yeah, I'm wondering, like, they're calling it Game Boy Ultra temporarily at the moment, so I'm wondering what Nintendo are going to do about this, because Nintendo don't take kindly to their designs being used.
Yeah, I mean, it looks exactly like a Game Boy. But interestingly, they do say that that's the development name of it.
And it's by Hyperkin as well, who are a very established kind of a third-party company.
Yeah, but it hasn't got the Game Boy branding on the actual system itself, if you look at it.
No, there's no word Game Boy there. But the D-pad looks the same, the start and select and all of the... even the speakers at the side?
Yeah, I mean, the design is pretty much identical. But apparently it's made of aluminium as well, which, from reading about it, apparently it's got a nice kind of hefty feel in your hand.
Yeah, and does an Ultra sound like Ultra 64, which was the test name for the N64.
Yeah, maybe that's where they got it from. But I think from what I've seen about this, I mean, they're obviously appealing to retro gamers as well. But apparently one of the big uses they're hoping people are going to use this device for is for chiptune music.
Yeah, because the Game Boy was really cool, actually, for making chiptune music. My friend had a thing called Nano Loops, which was like a cart that you put in, and it'd be like a little tracker. But it was more kind of like Fruity Loops, you know, you put little dots in certain areas, and then you'd be able to make this really cool Game Boy music. That's why I'm guessing they've probably got separate left and right outputs so that you can have some mad stuff going on.
I mean, I've not seen many details about how this works. I mean, they're hoping it's going to be released for under $100, which is, bargain price.
Yeah.
But whether it's going to be emulation, maybe it's going to be an ARM-based thing with an emulator on boot. But I always remember, I mean, that kind of really dirty analog sound that the original Game Boy had. That sounded fat when you plugged it into an amplifier.
Oh, yeah. Really good. Yeah, I did a gig years ago with a guy called Boy Blue, and he was playing music off a Game Boy, and he was actually in a bar, and he was like, had this Game Boy strapped to him, and he was walking on top of everyone's tables whilst they were drinking, like just playing this crazy music. It was great.
Yeah, you look that weird, you're not going to get beaten up in a bar for doing that. So if you want to find out more about this, we'll keep an eye on the project and we'll put that in this week's show notes at theretrohour.com. Well, we're talking about Nintendo. Never thought I'd see this headline. The PlayStation 2 has been beaten in sales for the first time in 18 years.
Really? But what could it beat the PlayStation?
What could it be?
No, honestly, is it doing that well, the Nintendo Switch?
Nintendo Switch has beaten the first year sales of the PS2 in Japan.
My God.
The first system to do that since the year 2000. Now, it's interestingly because the dates are actually quite close. The PS2 came out in Japan on March the 4th, 2000. The Switch was released on March the 3rd last year, so like literally a day difference. It turns out in its first year, the PS2 sold 3.1 million units, and the Switch has just surpassed that with 3.25 million units. So pretty tight, but it is a first system in 18 years to actually beat the PS2 in terms of first year sales, which in itself is pretty nuts. And also, Nintendo of America tweeted this out this week, that in America, the Switch is doing rather well as well. And it turns out within 10 months, the Nintendo Switch has become the fastest-selling video game system of all time in America. Wow. Overtaking the Mega Drive, the NES, the Atari 2600.
And there was me being a cynic all those months ago. The Switch isn't going to do anything.
I do remember, I did think that today. I thought, did Ravi actually say, I don't think it's going to be a success?
Yeah, I probably did. If you nobody go back and look.
But I mean, obviously, I love my Switch, and it is a system that I game most on these days. I mean, I've been playing Mario Odyssey like all over Christmas. Amazing game. If you love Mario 64, there are some bits in that game as well that actually are like the original Mario. It goes back into 2D.
Yeah.
So you go through a tunnel, then you get like original 2D Mario, and it goes back to kind of 3D and stuff.
Oh, cool.
Great homage to the classics. And obviously, we did a video over Christmas.
Yeah.
Us all playing the Switch. And if you want to check that out, it's on my YouTube channel. I'll put that in our show notes this week as well. I mean, it was the first time you'd really played the Switch, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I've had a couple of plays, but it was quite a nice machine, yeah. I quite like it. It was a bit glitchy, actually, with some of the 4-player stuff that we did, but I can see the appeal. I've decided it's not really my thing.
It's more like couch gaming, I think, which is what I like about it. It's that local... there are not many systems where you can sit around and have like a 4-player game with your mates on your couch.
And the thing I like about it is that all the retro titles are kind of coming out on it, and that's really cool. It's really riding this retro wave. That's why we mention it so much.
Well, there was actually a little... I don't know if it's fake or not. This was on Reddit the other day, and a lot of people said it must be fake, it's not real. But if it is fake, it's done really well. And it was showing the next version of the Switch's firmware. And in there was the virtual console to play NES and SNES games.
Yeah, because they have said they're going to support the older stuff, so yeah.
It makes sense to. I mean, you look at the Wii and the Wii U, I mean, God, I bought loads of like classic Nintendo games on those, and it's like, Good games,
you just end up buying your games 5 times, don't you, Dan? That's the problem.
Yeah, it's annoying in that respect.
5 copies, yeah.
I think, it's only a £5, but then by the time you've added them all up, you spend about 400 on these games you've already got.
And they're just rubbing their hands.
This is quite an interesting little trend that's happening in the demo scene world at the moment. I mean, you've always been in the demo scene, haven't you?
I've absolutely loved demos. And if people don't know what demos are, they're not games. They're kind of just technical demonstrations of what you can do on your machine. Now, a lot of them are kind of taken from meme culture and stuff like that, and you'll have a lot of videos playing. So one that's been going around that I've been noticing on everything is this thing called Bad Apple. Now, can I play your little sample?
Go on, you said it. Yeah, that is proper demo scene music. So what's this running on then?
So this was kind of a meme that was created. And then people have made this thing called stylized shadow art.
Okay.
Which is kind of a shadow based on this music
Looks
video.
like a negative kind of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of like a negative. But a lot of people have realised this negative, you can kind of downscale and use to display video on stuff like the Amstrad CPC. You can play it on C64. There's versions coming out for absolutely everything. I even saw a Vectrex version of it, which is insane. But the most impressive version I've seen of it is someone's actually coded it into teletext.
No way.
Yeah.
I mean, teletext, you're talking, it was really, I mean, the original teletext was run on BBC Micros, wasn't it?
Yeah. So you could run it on BASIC.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've somehow converted these shadow graphics into kind of fitting in the teletext little drawings, and it's a full animation with music and everything. It's absolutely insane.
It kind of reminds me a bit of like, ANSI art that you'd see on BBS's and that kind of thing. Probably same kind of technique, I guess, especially with the shadows and that kind of stuff.
The shadowy silhouette thing, and I think this is a kind of new style that's going to come out, and it looks really cool. One of the most impressive demos I've seen in ages.
It never ceases to amaze me, what they can do with new systems. With the old systems, new stuff they can do with it. It's like, you look at that and you thought, how is that even possible on like an Amstrad?
Yeah, because like last year I was watching a Revision, which is the big demo competition, and they were releasing all these Mega Drive demos, and they were just absolutely mind-blowing because all these guys that create these demos, they find all the little techniques and tricks that everybody's been doing for years and years and years. They use them all to the maximum and push these machines like far beyond what they were meant to do.
And especially with, I mean, you mentioned, I saw a few of those Mega Drive demos last year as well. And I obviously didn't think there was a Mega Drive scene back in the day because unless you had like a Mega CD, no one could afford CD writers when that came out.
Yeah.
And you couldn't make your own cartridges. But now that we have stuff like Everdrives and you can just download them and stuff, it actually opens up these previously closed systems for people to experiment with. Which
and just to do absolutely mad things with and push it far beyond it was ever meant to be. Teletext was not meant to do that.
Or was it? I'd love to go to a demo party there. That's got to be on our agenda.
They look majorly cool.
Yeah, one of these really sleazy, like 5-day ones in like, middle of nowhere in a field in Poland or somewhere. Yeah, that'd be awesome. So if you do have any going on, actually, because I often find out about these after they've been on.
Yeah, I think Revision is the big one to go to. We need to go there one day, Dad.
Yeah, if there's any really underground ones as well,
I think there's a UK one that happens in the south, in a small village, and there's like 15 people.
Isn't that the one that DJ Echo
no, Hoffman.
Hoffman is it? Yeah. I know Echo does one as well. I'm sure he's told us in the past. So if you know about any of these, they're normally always in like really posh towns that no one would expect, aren't they?
Yeah,
Tunbridge Wells or somewhere.
Yeah, not the demoers turn up. Yeah.
So do let us know if you know about any. I feel like I'm asking for like invitations to a rave in like 1991. show@theretrohour.com. We did talk about the Game Boy and stuff before. I mean, obviously, a big problem back in the old days when you had a handheld system. And I mean, you've actually just got a new handheld system, so this is well timed.
Yeah.
It was the batteries, wasn't it?
It was the batteries. You'd have people stuck with their Game Gear, battery charger straight next to the wall. The Atari Lynx, I know they improved it in the second version, but it wasn't much of an improvement. The batteries would absolutely drain. Batteries would leak acid everywhere if you left them in places because it was all just alkaline. Now there's these new NIMH batteries, which are basically rechargeable batteries, but with lithium inside, and they are a lot more powerful.
So these are just kind of drop-in replacements?
Yeah, they're literally, they look like AA batteries. There's no kind of difference apart from them being about 21 quid for 4.
Are these the ones with the USB ports on them?
No.
Oh, okay, I've seen some of those recently.
These are called AnyLoops.
Okay.
Now, I use them, and they're by Panasonic, and it's a special technology they've invented. And the whole idea of AnyLoops is that after a year, they still retain 85% of the power, and even after 5 years, they've got 65% of the power. So they're still holding a lot more power than the other ones, and it's lithium inside. You know the stuff that you'd have on your laptop batteries?
Yeah.
That's the stuff inside of it, rather than the acid.
Nickel cadmium, wasn't it, before?
Yeah.
The nasty stuff. How do you charge them then? Do you use a normal battery recharger?
Yeah, just a rechargeable battery point. It takes quite a long time, but these last forever. Trust me. I put one in my Xbox One controller. I've not charged it for 6 months.
Oh, really?
It's insane. So imagine using these on your Atari Lynx. You'll get a lot more life. And we're going to post you a link to on Reddit, which is it safe to use modern rechargeable batteries? Because, you know, a lot of people worry about their old systems, and actually, without the battery leakage, and if you check your devices at the right voltage, it's safe. And it's going to last a lot longer.
Well, let's talk about this sexy new bit of kit that you bought.
Oh, God, yeah. I bought a white Game Gear.
So these are really rare then?
Yeah, I think there was 10,000 made, and they've just been given out to developers and to staff. But this one was in amazing condition, so I'm just like gonna hoard it away for 10 years until there's none left in the world, and then be like,
destroy every other one. Yeah. So this is your nice little bonus from your cryptocurrency that you I know you're quite into.
I'm doing a lot of crypto and stuff, and it seemed to pay off this week, so I was like, get a Game Gear.
I've always wanted a Game Gear. Have you got another one to play? Or
that one's going to be put in storage. I'm going to get another one to play. But then I was looking at some of the amazing stuff you can do with a Game Gear, and it's insane. You can add LCD mods in there. You can have like all kinds of stuff.
Put like HDMI outputs on the back. I've seen that kind of thing going on. I mean, I'm actually really interested in handhelds again at the moment. It might be the Switch has actually reinvigorated my interest.
It reinvigorated me. I thought, I'd get a Switch. No, let's get an old weird.
I might a couple of Gameboys, and I kick myself because I've had a few chances in the last couple of years to buy an Atari Lynx at a pretty good price.
Yeah.
And I never do it. And then I was at a show not long ago, and there was a load of Lynx games, but no consoles anywhere. So I was like, if I went to an event, maybe in Play Blackpool, I'll do this. And there might be both there. And I will.
Well, that's it as well. The Game Gear's got an EverDrive as well. So, you can just bust in. And also, it supports kind of Sega Master System stuff. So if you've got demos, and there's a big homebrew scene at the moment, so you can just get them Master System ones and run them on your old. It's actually got a video of this bad apple on the Game Gear.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So
it's everywhere.
Have you opened the box and tried it out then? Does it work?
Oh, yeah, it works.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I would have sent it back if it didn't. Yeah.
Open the box and there's like a brick in there or something.
Yeah. A picture of one.
Yeah, you get scammed like that, did you, on eBay? Yeah, that's really good to know, though, because, it was always a big issue with those systems. The batteries would cost, more than the console would after a year or two.
Or you've left it in your drawer and then all the acids come out and you're just like, oh, my God.
Not good. Now, let's talk about some text adventure news then before we get into this week's special guest. Tell us about Adventuron.
Yeah, so this has been submitted by a listener called Chris Ainsley, and this is really cool. It's a browser-based text adventure authoring system.
Wow, okay.
And game system. So you can basically, online, have your old, you are lost in the swirling mist, and all of these kind of games. It's got a full parser on it, and you can kind of program them, but people have also been doing conversions to them. So
what, of classic old school text adventures?
Yeah.
Okay.
So John Wilson of Xenobuy Software has ported 11 classic games already to Adventuron.
The Hobbit's on here.
Yeah, there'll be more to follow. So it features code completion, embedded documents, and theming support as well.
That's actually, looking at it, they're talking about the fact it's a model-based adventure creation language, inspired by a lot of the techniques that Scott Adams used, Quill, the old systems, the early adventure systems. I think that's awesome because text adventures were, the purest old-school adventure games, weren't they? That's where it all began, isn't it, with these original text adventures.
Yeah, and I think we all did it as well. I remember sitting there with my mates BBC, programming one. I think we had one where we were in... Tony Blair was chasing us down an alleyway or something.
Really? On a BBC? Interesting. One game that we played at school that I guess probably does fall into the genre of text adventure thinking about it. It was a game called Granny's Garden.
Okay.
And I've shared a couple of pictures of this before on our Facebook. And you'd essentially, I mean, from what I haven't played it for years, I must get like either an emulator for the BBC fired up or maybe actually an original system. That'd be good to put on my to-buy list this year. But Granny's Garden, though, you'd have to escape this evil witch.
Yeah.
And it was actually terrifying at the time. And if the witch caught you, she sent you home.
Oh, no.
Obviously child-friendly and stuff, but me and my friends at school would sit there mesmerised by it. You know, this fact that you could walk like forward and like what you'd see up ahead. And it was, I mean, looking at this as well, it kind of supports those, you know, kind of mid-80s text adventure style games with the rudimentary graphics.
Yeah, and I reckon it's really cool that you can theme it as well. So you may be able to do the system that it's themed by. And, you know, more people that get involved with this, more games are going to get ported and new games created. You know, you might even be able to do collaborative creation of text adventures. That would be cool.
And because it's web-based as well, no installation, you just run it in the browser.
Yeah, you just need a browser. You might be able to even do it on your phone, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome. So if you want to find out more about that, just imagine like being able to play Zork and stuff just on the bus on your phone. It's like
so
pretty
good.
Amazing. I'll put that in this week's show notes at theretrohour.com. Right then, guys, well, thank you for checking out episode number 104 of the Retro Hour podcast. We'll be out again next Friday, available from all of your favourite podcast clients. And whichever platform you do listen on, it's always nice if we get some reviews in there as well. You know, all those 5-star ratings and thumbs up and little nice comments and stuff always help us get up the chart. We did have someone asking us this week, actually, are we going to be on Spotify?
Spotify hasn't done the UK service yet.
Okay.
I think they also pick it as well. They don't.
I thought they were handpicked.
They don't allow submissions, so we'll see.
So if anyone knows anyone at Spotify, we'd happily get on that platform.
Yeah, just send them a tenner.
So thanks for checking out this week's show. Don't forget the competition that's running at the moment to win those weekend passes for Play Expo in Blackpool. You'll find that on the front page of theretrohour.com. Now let's get on one of our guests who will be joining us at Play Expo on our YouTubers panel. He's got some really cool stories. Let's get nostalgic about Sega, Amstrad, a few of those interesting telly stories as well. It's going to be a really good one. Daniel Ibbertson, a.k.a. Slopes Game Room, is our special guest on this week's Retro Hour podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Ciao.
You're listening to the Retro Hour podcast, and it is time to welcome this week's very special guest. Welcome to the show, Daniel Ibbertson, a.k.a. Slopes Game Room. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you on.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's awesome. I've been listening to you guys loads recently. It's wicked to be part of the show. Thank you.
Oh, you're not sick of our voices yet then, no?
No. It's a little bit of like, I don't know. I'm a bit flabbergasted. This is amazing. I'm liking it.
Well, obviously, we've got something very big coming up next month. You're going to be on our panel at Play Expo Blackpool, which is going to be very exciting.
Oh, I'm crazy excited. Like, I haven't been to an expo in ages. In fact, I'm on the stage. The old Q&A. It's going to be brilliant. Really, really cool. And I get to meet some other YouTubers that I talk to all the time, but I've never met. So
yeah, well,
it'll be really good.
This is the first time we've done a kind of YouTubers panel at a retro show, which is just fantastic.
I think it's the first in the UK, I think, actually. Because, you often get them at the big American shows, don't you? But there's not been one in the UK yet, so...
Yeah. You always see those like all the American channels say, "Oh, I'm going to be at this expo, I'm going to be at that expo." And, you just never see that in the UK channel. So no, I think hopefully it's the start of something.
Exactly. Show the Americans how it's done.
yes. We're going to invade. This is going to be good.
Well, let's get on to you then. I mean, it's always a question we like to start with to get a bit of background. I mean, what was your first ever gaming experience then, going all the way back to the start?
Well, probably the same as everyone else. I don't remember. I don't know if this was my first ever one, but the first one I remember. The first computer I had was an Amstrad CPC 464 with the colour monitor, thankfully. Nice. And I think it was Bridget. It was either Bridget or Oh Mummy. Obviously, I had the whole selection of those Amsoft games. And I think it was Bridget. I'm pretty sure. I just remember being playing Bridget and not just every single guy falling in the water because I couldn't keep up. But yeah, I think it was Bridget.
And were you like a big Amstrad fan then? Did you? So obviously at the time most people think back then and they think C64 Specky. The Amstrad was kind of an underrated platform, but it was kind of, the third player. I always think it was a machine that didn't get as much love as it deserved compared to the others.
Well, luckily for me, I mean, I didn't know of anything else. You know, my mum bought the Amstrad for the house, you know, for the family, and everyone I know had one. And unless there were people out there that had something else, I only ever knew of the Amstrad's existence. So, you know, I'd always go down to Boots and, you know, all these other little shops to pick up my new £1.99 game, you know, and maybe a stack of 5 tapes to record all my friends' games and vice versa. And I didn't know of any other system because I was just too young. I was just so in the mindset of Amstrad CPC. Nothing else mattered, you know. So
it was a magical day when we discovered tape-to-tape copying worked on games, wasn't it?
Oh yes. And I remember it was actually part of the reason I got a dual tape system, so I could record tapes from other games.
So you hadn't seen any other systems? Like, did you go into a shop one day and see Sega or Nintendo and stuff?
Probably. I mean, I remember, one of my earliest memories is I was quite late into my primary school days. Oh, no, let's say mid to my primary school days, maybe. And I remember seeing a Master System, and I think there was definitely Alex Kidd I played, and something else. I think it was Pengu. And I was just such a massive fan of the Amstrad, you know. I was such a fanboy that I was like, this is crap compared to, I don't know, like Roland on the Ropes, and, you know. And it obviously wasn't, you know, like the games I was playing, but definitely not as good as what was being played over there on the Master System. But I was just such a massive fanboy of it until that day that a Mega Drive dropped under the Christmas tree. Then see you later, Amstrad. I never looked back, you know.
You never fancy getting your hands on a GX 4000 then?
Well, I didn't know that existed until the internet came along, in all honesty.
I don't think anyone else did.
Really want one now.
So, did you get any like Amstrad magazines, or were you involved in any of the culture at all?
Yeah, I mean, I used to get the magazines every month or whenever it was. Get those tapes. I think it was Amstrad Action. I was just really more into the pictures and things. I used to trace all the characters. I was obsessed with Dizzy before I became, like, you know, really into Sonic the Hedgehog and whatever Sega was pushing in my way. Like, Dizzy was plastered around my wall. I remember I had like Dizzy t-shirts and everything. I was really, really into Dizzy. I don't think I ever completed them as a kid, but in fact, Dizzy was Fast Food Dizzy was the first game I ever completed as well. So,
oh wow,
yeah.
That was a good one, wasn't it? It's like kind of Pac-Man clone, I remember.
One of those maze games.
You had to kind of push blocks. Great game.
Actually, speaking of Dizzy as well, I know we interviewed the Oliver twins last year, and they were telling us that they actually did all the development for the Spectrum Dizzy games on an Amstrad, and actually put that down a serial cable because they didn't like developing on the Spectrum. So
yeah, the keyboard ones.
Yeah.
Did they really? That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm hoping to interview them one day and do a complete history of them. So that sort of stuff, I love hearing that. That's awesome.
Yeah, there's a point to the Amstrad there.
Yes. It's always points to the Amstrad. Everything else is just dead to me. I wish I still had my Amstrad. I really do.
So you said you found a Mega Drive under the Christmas tree. Was that your first console then?
Yes. I remember the thing was, like, I was definitely a mummy's boy. And whenever my mum would say something, oh, that game isn't as good as an Amstrad, is it? I'm like, no, definitely not. And then I remember leading up to Christmas, she kept saying, that Mega Drive looks quite good, doesn't it? And I'm like, yeah, it does. And then it clicked. I went, am I going to get a Mega Drive for Christmas? And I started seeing all the rumours. Everything was blowing up about this Sonic the Hedgehog character, and you couldn't help but be sucked into it. And then when it finally dropped under there and I got Fantasia, Sonic 1, Sonic 2 and Streets of Rage, like, got to be the best Christmas ever. Absolutely. Life-changing.
You know, because people probably forget what it was like. I mean, that kind of jump from the 8-bit platforms to something like the Mega Drive. I mean, at the time, it seemed like having an arcade machine in your house, didn't it?
Oh, majorly. I mean, if you look at, like, the difference between a PlayStation 3 and a PlayStation 4, I mean, there are noticeable differences. But now you go back from the 8-bit to the 16-bit eras and you know, from 16 to 32 and stuff like that. They're huge jumps. Incredibly noticeable difference. Yeah, absolutely.
And those were fantastic titles that you mentioned. The first ones that you got, you know, Streets of Rage.
Well,
wow.
Fantasia, not so much, but
graphically nice.
Yeah. It's what did they do? They chip-tuned up like classical music, and it didn't well. It's like donk, donk, donk. It's really. As a kid, I loved it. I didn't know any better, you know.
What was your kind of favourite game on the Mega Drive then, out of all of them?
My favourite game on the Mega Drive is my favourite game of all time, Sonic 3 and Knuckles as a complete game, those two together. My most popular video is Streets of Rage, and Streets of Rage is one that's always stuck with me. Like, to this day, even though everyone prefers 2, I prefer 1. It's definite nostalgia pulling on there, but yeah, it's such an obvious one, but Sonic 3 and Knuckles and Streets of Rage are the best games, absolute best games.
So now recently there's been this kind of, obviously with the Nintendo miniature versions coming out, the Classic and the SNES Mini, it kind of feels like, I know there is like the third party, the games kind of Mega Drive knockoff, but it does kind of feel like there does need to be a classic plug and play system that's good like the original system was. You can play all these old games on again, I think. Yeah,
it would be amazing. But I actually saw today that is it RetroPie or a company like that are releasing some like Mega Drive, Dreamcast, and Saturn peripherals, brand new ones. So you're going to be able to pick up official wireless Genesis. I think they're Genesis, but Genesis controllers for your Mega Drive, which is really cool. So there needs to be systems that do that sort of stuff, though, don't they? The way that Nintendo did it, I think.
Actually, speaking of accessories, I mean, back in the day, did you have any for your Mega Drive then? Did you have like a 32X or a Mega CD or anything like that?
Or a Power Glove?
No, I had the Menacer, and I don't remember playing it that much. I mean, there weren't that many games for it. I think I sold my copy of Terminator 2, and then I got a Menacer that Christmas. I was like, no, I could finally have played that game, So I had the Menacer. I had third-party knockoff controllers, which were actually perfect controllers. They weren't different shapes. They just had things like turbo and stuff on them. But other than that, I didn't really have anything else. I had a really big collection of games. Although I do remember one of the biggest gaming decisions of my life was: do I buy Theme Park for the Mega Drive, or do I buy a Sega 32X? And I chose Theme Park, but I've got a 32X now. Yeah.
I remember the first time I walked into a gaming shop and actually saw a Mega CD, though. I mean, looking back at it looks quite rudimentary now, the graphics and stuff, but seeing like videos and stuff running on it, I mean, do you have any kind of memories of that? Did it impress you back then?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My cousin got a Mega CD, and yeah, just seeing Road Avenger, and I was just watching him play it, and I'm like, this is insane, because in my mind, he was controlling that car, and obviously he wasn't, but it just felt, I can't believe this is it. We've made it. Like, we're playing full-on cartoons. That was such a big thing. Like when you put in Aladdin and, Castle of Illusion, it looks like you're playing, one of those Saturday morning cartoons. And when you got the Mega CD, I was like, wow, like cartoons on a TV, like through a console. It's incredible.
It can't get any better than this.
No. I don't think graphics can ever look better than this.
So did you get into like wider Sega culture, and were you kind of drooling over these strange add-ons that were all coming out in the magazines?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I eventually got them all minus a couple of handhelds. I don't own a Nomad or anything like that. But the only one that I skipped over was the Sega Saturn. I got a PlayStation when the Sega Saturn came out. But then what was really cool is every time my friend down the road, who was a Sega, an absolute Sega, nothing else mattered. Every time he moved up one, he would sell me all his games for £1 each. So, halfway through the Mega Drive's life, he went into the Mega Drive, and I bought like 35 Master System games, like really, really good ones for like 30 odd quid. And then the same happened when he moved to the Dreamcast, and I got his entire Saturn collection, including some brilliant games, all the Knights games, everything in that. I had Burning Rangers, the works. And then I bought all his Dreamcast games when he moved away from that as well. So.
But did you have a Game Gear as well?
I had a Game Gear, but after the life of the game. I didn't have a Game Gear back in the day.
Okay, like you bought it retroactively.
I think the batteries were too expensive for most kids who had them back then, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a pretty decent Game Gear collection. But like I say, I bought that, I want to say in the Saturn era, I reckon.
Well, Ravi actually you've picked up a really rare Game Gear, haven't you, this week?
I've got a white Game Gear, which is very rare.
Do you know if the Game Gear is multi-region?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Because there's an incredible Japanese scene with the Game Gear. There's some really, really good Japanese exclusive games I've found.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of crazy mods that you can do with Game Gear now. So you can add LCD screens in them. You can have all kinds of stuff. Increase the battery life with lithium batteries and stuff. So yeah,
make it last more than an hour.
Yeah.
That is full on. Imagine if you went on a holiday, you'd have to get like a whole pack of batteries for one journey, and then a whole pack of batteries for the journey home as well.
Well, I had a friend who had an Atari Lynx, and I remember him getting like a battery charger. You remember you get those rechargeable batteries you put in these little like boxes, plug it into the wall. It took about 6 hours to charge, and you get about 40 minutes of play, I think, on it. Yeah.
Well, my Game Gear had you could put extra batteries, because they bought some third party thing where you could put extra batteries, so like double the amount of batteries in each side. So it weighed an absolute ton when you put in, like, what would that have been, like 12 batteries maybe, something like that.
Nice fire risk in your bag.
Yeah, and that ain't fitting in anyone's pockets. Like, you need a backpack for that.
So did you ever find yourself going to shops and hanging around the Sega area, or going to big gaming events and kind of hanging around the Sega store?
No, sadly, I didn't know of any gaming events when I was young. I mean, I went to, there was a few retro game shops that did, competitions and stuff like that, to win whatever tat they'd managed to get hold of. I used to go to a few of those, and I remember I won a couple of games. I remember there was a Double Dragon competition I'd done quite well in once. But no, I didn't go to any major competitions. But I would always spend as much time as possible whenever I went, to the shops, in game shops. I lived and breathed it.
I think everyone kind of remembers their local game shop that they used to go to when they were a kid. I mean, if you any stick in your mind, what were they like and where were they?
So the youngest one, I suppose near the end of my primary school days, there was a place called Oriel in Kent where I lived, and the guy who owned it was an absolute idiot. He was so nasty. He'd be watching you on the security cameras to make sure you weren't doing anything dodgy and all this. It was the tiniest shop that if he just turned around the corner, he could see me. He was an absolute douche. But I remember going there all the time and just I'd go on this mental almost like hour-long bike journey each way just to go and rent, whatever game it may be. I think I'd done it all the way up to the PlayStation 1 era. I was renting things like Twisted Metal and stuff. But the really cool thing about that place is when they started closing down, I started to get to know him a little bit more, and he let me go upstairs and, pick up random things to buy. And I spent a couple of £100 in there that day. And I remember as I was walking down the stairs, I was like, what's that? And there was like this Discman looking thing with Sega written on it. And he goes, I don't know, you can have it if you want, like 10, 15 quid. And it was a multi-mega.
Wow.
Which was probably my best pickup I've ever had. That was a really cool day because he had loads of games upstairs that had never been opened. I bought a crazy amount of Mega CD games for like £5 each, but we're talking 20 years ago or something. I don't know. Do you know when it was okay to pick up games that cheap,
Do you know what's in that shop's place now? Do you know what it is today?
I think it's a coffee shop.
Yeah. My local gaming shop's now Cocktail Bar. I actually went there about a year ago, and it felt weird to know that I'd been standing there, playing video games like 20 years earlier. Really bizarre.
Mine's like a goth shop where they sell like gothic stuff. When you saw a Saturn eventually, what did you think of it?
I remember seeing the Saturn in Argos, the first time I ever saw one, go in there, demo unit. But by this time, I already had the PlayStation, so I suppose it was quite late on. And I was playing on Daytona USA, which I remember playing it and thinking, this is quite cool. But over on my PlayStation, I was playing things like Wipeout 2097. I was playing the original Wipeout by this point and games like that. And Destruction Derby, and I was like, that's the future. Cars that are fully smashing into each other. You can see the damage and that futuristic racing with techno music and all this sort of stuff. So that's the future. And I felt like the Sega Saturn was almost dated the first time I ever played on one. And then after that, everything I ever read in magazines was about how it's on its way out and you can pick up a Saturn now for less than £100 and all this sort of stuff. And it wasn't long after that, like I say, I bought my friend's entire Saturn collection for, £1 a pop.
Well, later after that, the Dreamcast came out. And how did you feel about Sega in those days? Did you think this was the kind of last breath of Sega, or this was the revival? Or?
So I was in sort of, I suppose, mid-secondary school by the end of the PlayStation era, I suppose, when everything was moving towards that. And DJing had taken over my life in a huge way. I was obsessed with DJing. I would just carry around CD cases everywhere I went, trying, I could mix this with this. And every time I got a new single, I'd try and mix it with every other song I had. I was so into DJing and, my records and what have you. And I wasn't that bothered about video games almost anymore. And I remember when my friends were all getting N64s and they're playing banjo and kazooie, all I wanted to do was just mix. And it was a bit of a grey area in my gaming life, that was. And then I remember picking up a Dreamcast a Sega Saturn magazine, because I had this new influx of Sega Saturn games. And I remember seeing all these previews for this Sonic Adventure game coming out. And I was just blown away by the look of what Sonic was going to be, because I was very disappointed that there was never a good 3D Sonic game except for, Sonic R and stuff like that. But I'd been playing things like Croc and Crash Bandicoot on the PlayStation, and I really wanted a good 3D Sonic game. And when I finally got that Dreamcast, I was absolutely blown away. I was fully sucked into to gaming again. I got hooked into the being able to go online with my Dreamcast and playing Choo Choo Rocket online and pushing those back buttons to go, you're too slow, and all that sort of stuff. I just got absolutely soaked into gaming again, and I started collecting all my retro games again, getting into emulation as well, emulating games on my Dreamcast when I finally worked out how to do that sort of stuff. But yeah, the Dreamcast was me fully jumping in deep end again.
That kind of revived your interest in gaming then?
Absolutely.
But it was a wonderful system, and I mean, did it kind of break your heart when you saw that it wasn't going to be like, the big system that everyone hoped it was going to be?
Yeah, absolutely. But I am really happy that it's got such an amazing fan base online nowadays. Normally when you look back at the N64, even all of these retro consoles, there's always some bad things to say about them, but no one really talks about bad games on the Dreamcast that much, The Dreamcast is a really, really loved system, and it's definitely in my top, 3 or 4 consoles of all time. I think it's an incredible system. It's basically an arcade machine, isn't it? The old Naomi ports.
Did you become a fan of kind of any gaming TV at the time?
I always missed it when it was on. Obviously, I watched Games Master and stuff when I was younger, but I do remember actually becoming quite obsessed with, tuning in. I'm going to forget what it's called. I think it's the Games Network on Sky, when you have to tune in your Sky. This is obviously before the Dreamcast days, but I suppose it was about the Dreamcast days, actually, yeah. And they used to do these like weird European music videos, but like they'd have gameplay footage over the top, but they would never tell you what the gameplay is. Right. And I remember sitting there like, what's this? This is like Final Fantasy, but there's Disney characters in it, which obviously became Kingdom Hearts. And I became really into like this weird one where you're seeing all these little plant lives running around, which became Pikmin. And yeah, I really got into that, but all it was just, it was all the way through the night, so I'd record it on VHS, and I wish I still had those tapes, but they'd be basically, just really up, like that ugly sort of European music, really over the top simp stuff with like all this gameplay footage of whatever the new one-on-one fighting game from PlayStation is or whatever. And it was like the only way. It was YouTube before YouTube, I suppose.
I was going to say, it's quite a creative way to show games off, though, actually, when you think about it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you actually got involved in television a bit later on, didn't you?
I did.
In the last decade. So tell us how your adventure in television started then.
Okay, right. So me and my mates started, we was having house parties. Their parents were really cool, one of my friends, and we would always have house parties at his house, and we'd, be a bunch of young lads just messing about and, getting on it. It was really, really lame though. It was like, dude, you fell over. We all thought we was like skater boys and stuff. And then Jackass came out, and they were like, oh my God, they're doing what we're doing and stuff like that. And then we'd, actually, we're quite lame, aren't we? And, we'd try and up our game a bit. And then, Dirty Sanchez come out, and we ended up making our own website. And we was getting, at first we weren't getting that many, but by the end we was getting, 10, 20,000 views I'm making up numbers now, but a month, I want to say. I might be getting that completely wrong, but we was getting a lot of views for us, and then we decided we'd make a movie. We'd called it 101 Stunts an Hour. And because we always thought when you watch these Jackass-esque shows, there's always lots of filler. And we wanted to be bang, 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 something else stupid. We got about halfway through, and we was coming back with scars all ourselves, and it was really bad. And I remember my wife getting really angry with me, like, you've got to stop doing this. And she me and my friend are sitting in the back of this car, and she was driving along with his girlfriend, and they were just telling us off like, nothing will ever come from this. We're like, okay. And then it was like a week later, Channel 5 got hold of us and said, do you want to turn it into a TV show? I'm like, yes, please. So, about a year or so passed. We had loads of meetings. And then it basically turned into Brainiac, which, in case there's anyone out there that don't know what that is, some very intelligent guy would come on the screen and goes, what would happen... how does seasickness happen? So then they'd put us in a boat and make us all get seasick, and there'd be the silly things like that. But a lot of the time it would focus on us having stupid stunts happen to us. So, for instance, one of my big ones was I'm scared of heights. We all had a phobia and we had to conquer it. So I was scared of heights. So they strapped me to the top of a plane and flew up into the sky to see if it would, conquering your fear. There's loads of crazy stuff like that. It's really good.
Are you scared of heights today then, or did it cure you?
I'm not scared of flying, but I'm still pretty scared of heights.
So
I did conquer my fear of flying, though. I used to be like really bad on planes and stuff, but now I'm like head out the window, head up against the window, you know.
Well, I think YouTube is a slightly safer place.
Absolutely, but you can find clips of all this on the tubes.
I know Ravi's been looking up a few today. He's been sending me this afternoon. Yeah,
I was like, do you remember this?
Do you remember it?
We both do, yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Like, hardly anyone knows it. It was really cool because for like the year or so after it ended, randomly, me and all my friends that were in there, because we're all friends, the people that are in it, we all know each other, would randomly say, are you getting added by loads of Japanese people? Yeah, me too. So I'm like, okay, the show's being aired in Japan. And,
oh, wow.
You know, we're getting added by loads of people in Australia. Okay, it's over there. But we would never know any of this. We never got like money for this, and they never told us any of this. It would just be there, you know.
I was quite obsessed with the early days of Channel 5 with, they had loads of stuff on there. Harry and Kosh and The Tribe and Topless Darts, I remember it.
You've still got them on VHS, Ravi. Well, I mean, moving more towards the present time. Obviously, today you do a lot of YouTube, so you still the modern video market. What inspired you to start like a gaming channel? And obviously, you've been a fan of gaming all your life, but when did you decide to kind of put the television broadcasting experience and gaming together?
Well, if you look at when my channel started, it was like 2011, but in fact, I didn't upload a video until like 2014. So I wanted to do it for a long time, even before then. I remember watching loads of channels online. I think my earliest gaming memory channels that I see were, everyone says Angry Video Game Nerd, but he was one of the first I remember seeing. Along with, I actually remember seeing Larry Bundy before I watched Angry Video Game Nerd, and the more I watched them, I was like, I want to do this. And it was Angry Video Game Nerd's episode on Sword Quest, where he actually told like an interesting story. It wasn't just the vulgar thing that he did, it was an actual interesting story about something that I didn't know about. You could win this chalice, you could win this real chalice, and you could win this real sword and all these other bits. And it was all to do with a video game. I was like, that is fascinating. That is so fascinating. And Larry always done really interesting tidbits as well as being humorous. And then obviously you had people like Lazy Game Reviews, which I think isn't. You guys have interviewed him in the past, haven't you? He was mind-blowingly good because he would do things that are not interesting. That a history on calculators is not interesting, but he made a video that made it very, very interesting. I was just like, absolute perfect channel.
Yeah, he shouldn't work on paper, should he? LGR. It's like,
it was. He done a video on the history of DRM, and again, that to me isn't really a topic that I would probably look up because I wouldn't find that interesting. But he done it so well. I was like, this is so fat. I've watched the video several times. It's so good. That's the sort of stuff I wanted to do. I wanted to, lack of a better word, educate as well as be humorous, I suppose. I wanted to find like these really interesting bits about retro gaming's past. And that's basically what I did. It took a long time before I eventually pulled my thumb out and actually got and done it, but went and done it. But, here I am. I'm doing it now. So,
well, your videos on YouTube are probably the most researched ones you've seen for gaming. Like, they're incredibly detailed. And how do you decide on what to choose and get all this research and, find out how you're accurate?
There is no answer. People ask me this all the time. I don't know. Sometimes I'm reading anything from like a retro gamer magazine, or I'm looking online at random blogs. I'm like, I have my bookmarks history is just so many different blogs that I look at and find interesting stories. And I'm like, that's really cool, Or I'm watching another video and they'll bring up something and just pass it by, and I'm like, that's really cool. And then I just go deep into searching about that one thing. They take a different amount of time each one, I mean, if I look at something like my Metroid Complete History, I probably spent months working on that script, honestly, just like looking at what other people's opinions are as well as mine and trying to find any kind of history piece. They take a really long time to make, but when they're done, I'm just so proud of them, that's it.
And have you had any of the actual like game developers comment on any of your videos or anything like that?
Yes, recently, as in within the last couple of weeks, I was absolutely blown away. Ed Annunziata from the guy who created Echo the Dolphin actually become a patron of mine because he liked my Echo the Dolphin video so much, which is like, wow, like how cool is that? other ones I've been sent. I'll show you guys after the podcast. But I've actually been sent pictures of Zombies Ate My Neighbors 2, a game that was in development but never came. Well, I think it was a prototype that was made, but never come out. And I keep, please, can we talk again? I want to show more people Zombies Ate My Neighbors 2 because he liked my Zombies Ate My Neighbors video. I've had Sandy White comment on the fact that I'd done a video about him. I've had what was one of the other ones? I had one of the guys that created Crash to Insanity, like my Crash Bandicoot videos, and he's now collecting together all of the making of Crash to Insanity, including all of its original name changes and stuff, which I'll reveal, and all that sort of stuff in there, and early concept of what he looked like, which is completely different to what he eventually looked like. And I'm going to make a video entirely about that. So yeah, I've had quite a lot of people come forward, and nothing's more rewarding than that game. Like Echo the Dolphin, I was so fascinated by that game, and now that guy is a patron of mine. How cool is that?
I think that is like the power of social media and YouTube, and that the fact that it does bring you closer to these people that kind of, when you were a kid you'd read about them in magazines, but you never thought you'd get a chance to ever talk to them. They were like celebrities, weren't they? But
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got to meet Yuzo Koshiro recently at a Data Discs party, the guy who created the music for Streets of Rage.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Like in 1992, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, I was at my nan's house. My mum heard Streets of Rage. She's like, "The music's quite good, isn't it?" I'm like, "It is." And I remember making mixtapes of this Streets of Rage music. And then what are we talking, like 30 years? No, 28, 30 years later, almost. I'm in a club listening to his music, meeting him, and having my record signed. Like it. You can't predict this stuff. It's amazing.
Well, one thing that you covered recently that I found really interesting is failed Kickstarters. And I was wondering, would you ever make a Kickstarter just for it to fail so you can get it in your list?
No, but I'm shooting myself in the foot in a big way because I am working on a board game with my wife to make a Kickstarter. And I think I'm going to have a lot of enemies as soon as I upload it, I actually uploaded, it's Wednesday today, I uploaded a Kickstarter video about an hour before we started this podcast as well. So,
well, what kind of Kickstarters stick in your mind as ones that were particularly outrageous or tragic, or any you've covered in there?
Well, the one I've just done, I mean, it's one of those things that I really don't want to talk about too much because it's so controversial. It's like, it's a board game that basically got very far into its development. There's a couple of hiccups. The board gamers that backed it were like, "Oh, you should do it like this," and she was like, "Oh, okay." And everyone was working together. It was really nice. It was only 85 backers, 7,850, which on the grand scheme of things isn't that much money. And then halfway through, she said it was a board game about the solar system as well. She announced that she couldn't continue because the sun, as in the sun in the sky, was telling her not to. So she started hearing voices saying that the board game is giving away too many of the sun's secrets. So she had to stop making the board game. So that was quite an interesting one. That's something that I've been looking up a lot over the last few weeks working on that video. So that's definitely stuck in my mind. Everyone wants me to cover things like the Vega Plus and things like that. And in time, it will come.
I know you've been doing stuff on Guru Larry's channel as well, actually. I mean, how did you get to... What's your relationship with Larry then? How do you know him, and how long have you worked with him?
Okay, so I was maybe half a year into my channel, and I just sent him out a tweet, being that annoying Twitter user, which please don't do this, but I did it. Where I basically just sent him a message saying, "Hey, Larry, look at my video. I hope you like it." And he did. Like, what a quality guy, massive YouTuber. Still took the time out to look at little old 1,000 subscriber me, my video. He did. And then he's like, "Oh, I really wanted to do this myself," because Larry's a guy that's got 1,000,001 ideas and, just not enough man hours to do them. As time went on, he gave me advice on changing some of my stories. So instead of calling it the Sandy White trilogy, it was something like the first ever a survival horror game. It was a lot more interesting video for people to click on. He gave me a lot of advice in my early days. And as time went on, he really liked my video editing style. And he said, "Did you want to, put a video on my channel?" And I said, "Yes, I do." I did. And I got thousands of subscribers that first time I ever did that. And he really propelled me up. And then as time went on, I eventually started working for him. And over the last year, maybe 2 years, if you look at his videos, a heavy chunk of them are edited by myself. I writ a couple of them, and there's people like Kim Justice that writes and edits for him as well, and another guy called Kieran who does some writing for him as well. And it's grown into a brilliant relationship. Like, me and Larry chat most nights about games and video ideas and, you know, podcast ideas and, you know, yeah. So yeah, me and Larry, a very close relationship.
Well, do you think retro gaming's in a good place at the moment then?
Yes, except for collectors, because it's way too expensive. Yeah, I think it's in a good place. It's always worrying, like, what is my next subject going to be? Because there's so many people on YouTube, so many retro gamers, you know, gaming channels covering this sort of stuff. But yeah, I think it's in a good place.
What's your kind of collection like then? Have you kind of increased your collection as you've been doing YouTube? Are you buying more systems and games and stuff?
I am buying a lot of random stuff. Like, my wife's getting angry with me when when a package comes through the post. I'm like, can you open it up? And it turns out to be maracas for a Dreamcast game. You know, what are these? Yeah, it's growing, but sadly, I did sell a heavy amount of my collection during that DJ Grey period, and it is sickening, absolutely sickening. I wish I could get it back. You know, selling those games for £1 each, and now they're like, some of them are hundreds. You know, I have a modest game collection. I think to the average person, I have a very big game collection, but compared to some of the people you see when they stand in front of their big game collection talking to the camera, it's nothing compared.
I think you made an interesting point there about the fact that, you know, we kind of didn't know how valuable this stuff was going to be. I mean, you know, you mentioned about the DJing stuff. I remember a friend of mine, because we were all into DJing and that we were at school. And I think his mum got him like a new, I think it was a Mega Drive actually. Only had it in about 2 weeks, and he swapped it for a Newmark belt drive turntable, and his mum went ape.
Absolutely. In fact, it wasn't DJing this one, but the biggest mistake of my life was that retro game shop. I sold my entire Mega Drive collection, I sold my youth for £1 a pop to buy a third and fourth Dreamcast controller. Absolutely sickening. So they were like 20-something pounds each, or something like that. And then I sold like 40-odd games.
And today they're quite cheap as well, bizarrely. They're only about 15 quid, aren't they?
It's sickening. I bought a fourth controller like 6 months ago or so for £2.
Yeah. Speaking of buying old stuff, I mean, you are going to be at a place where there is lots of retro gaming traders, and Larry will be there as well. I mean, you are going to be joining us at Play Expo in Blackpool on the panel. I mean, you said you haven't been to a retro gaming show for a while. Are you excited?
For a long time, yeah. Children have got in the way, but I'm looking forward to jumping back on it, without a doubt.
Yeah, we're going to be there. You're going to be spending the weekend in Blackpool?
Oh, yes.
A few drinks at the bar then, no doubt?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've been tweeting out about it, and so many people are like, oh, well, I'll have to meet up for a drink. If I have to meet up for a drink with every single person that says you want to meet up and have a drink, I will be trolleyed before the Q&A starts.
That's pretty much every night in Blackpool.
I'm proper excited for it. It's going to be amazing.
Well, Daniel, Mr. Slopes, we can't wait to see you there next month. And if anyone's coming down as well, obviously, we'll see you all there in Blackpool.
Absolutely.
Thank you for talking to us. If people want to find you on YouTube and they haven't come across you already, how do they find you? What do they type in?
Yep, any of the big search engines, Google, YouTube, Twitter, Patreon, Facebook, type in Slopes Game Room and you will find me.
Thank you so much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for having me on.